The title of this talk is Cracking the Code to Growth. But what is growth? Growth is an outcome. It's the result. It's not the input. There are things that actually are the inputs that have the outcome of growth. And so I'm going to talk about three of those things today. And the first thing I want to talk about, so John C. Maxwell sat down with, I got these notes because I want to make sure I get these names right. So William Bratton, I don't know if you guys know who William Bratton was. William Bratton was the chief of police over New York City when they took the crime in New York City and they massively reduced it. And John C. Maxwell, he sat with him and he asked him, he said this important question. He said, how did you do that? Because nobody could do that. And he said, John, he said, the first thing I did is I brought in the 7 chiefs of police over the 7 boroughs and areas of New York City, and I brought them into a room. And I asked them this one question. He said, this is his words. He said, do you believe that crime can be significantly cut in New York City? That was the question he asked them. Five of the chief police said no. 2 said yes. I just fired the 5 that said no, he said. I just fired the 5 that said no. Belief is so key. John C. Maxwell says you don't have to think like the world thinks. You don't have to be limited to what the world believes. You can rise to a higher level than that. So if we're asked about our own future, there's things that we want to see in our life, and those things are going to require change. Which of those 7 people would we be? Which of those 7 voices would we be? Yeah, but you don't know. You don't know what I've gone through. You don't know my story. You don't know my experience. It's whose side are we even on? Whose side am I defending? Am I defending my future? Or am I defending something that it's not even helping me get to my future? The obstacle is never something else. Sometimes we think it's someone else or something else. It's us, because the whole world works to provide us good things. And I can get to this point, but basically, thankfulness turns us towards the open door. Take 2 players, any 2 professional level players. One goes to the NFL, one doesn't. What's the difference? What's the difference? It's not their skill. They're both equally skilled. It's not their commitment or their discipline. They both put in the work. They couldn't have got there otherwise. It comes down to one thing. It's their ability to take feedback from the coach. It's what goes on inside of their mind. That's their perspective is going to define what they hear. How they value themselves, what they believe about themselves is going to impact what they hear. Because if they have a value for themselves, if they have a belief in what they self, they hear nothing but things that are opening the door. They hear nothing but things that are going to get them closer to their ultimate goal of getting on that NFL team, of getting on the NHL team, of getting to the big game, getting to the big whatever. Thankfulness turns us towards the open door. My folks, I really am so grateful for my folks. They really helped me with and showed me what it looked like to have a good attitude. I'm from an immigrant family, so we weren't very wealthy growing up. I think Steve and I had 1 toy each. I joke about this with my wife. My girls, they have lots of toys now. And I remember my mom, she'd cry sometimes because we just didn't have enough money to buy milk. And yet she taught me how to be thankful. I remember I want to learn to play the violin. And so later I got this violin, and it was literally the cheapest violin you could buy. It was the cheapest instrument that exists in the world. And it was what it was, but it was my vehicle to learning to play the music. And I accidentally sat on it. I broke the bridge. And for me, I was devastated. I thought that was it. I thought that my future with learning this instrument was done, because we didn't have the money to replace that instrument. I was devastated. My mom says to me, she said, John, you gotta be thankful that your violin is broken. I was like, what? I'm angry. I'm sad. I don't feel thankful. It was like, you gotta be thankful. So it's fine. I'll be thankful. I'll be thankful. And I chose to be thankful. And we went to this music store, and the guy there, he had a bridge and he replaced the bridge. And I don't know what he did. But after that, anytime I played that violin, or anyone else played it for that matter, they would be like, can I look at that violin? It didn't matter if they've been playing for 20 years. It didn't matter if they've been teaching it their whole life. They would all look at me and be like, what? Like, this violin is amazing. And there was something that changed in the bridge. I don't know what it was, but it just made the tone, the resonance sound so much better, because it literally changed the way that instrument played. And it's thankfulness will turn our eyes towards the open door. It's like, what situation in life are we looking at, and are we seeing it for the open door? You see, our attitude sets our altitude. There's a janitor who worked at J.C. Penney for 17 years. I have to check my facts to find out if it was true. And I looked into the sources. It's true. So there's a janitor who worked at JCPenney for 17 years. Very basic salary. Before he worked at JCPenney, he worked as a mechanic at a gas station. When he died, he gave $1.2 million to Brooks Memorial Library and $4.8 million to the Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. Like crazy. Where did that come from? He comes from a poor farming family that lived in a very small house. He amassed his wealth by investing in dividend producing stocks. So let's talk compound for a second. It can be hard to get one's head around compound, but once you get it, it's crazy. Compound effect works in all areas, but think of it like this. If you save $5,000 a year in an IRA or in Canada, TFSA, you get a 7% interest on that through a dividend producing stock. That interest will compound. So let's say 7%, there's a rule of 72, which basically you can take any number divided by 72, which is time and interest rate, and you'll figure out how long it takes to double. So it's going to double every 10 years in this case. So in 20 years, he put 5,000 in 20 years, that number is now $20,000. What happens if he adds another $5,000 the next year? Obviously in 21 years, he's got another 20,000. In 22, he's got another 20,000. So in 20 years, if he was saving $5,000 every single year and he's getting a 7% return, he's amassed $230,000. That sounds great, but what happens in another 10 years? Doubles again. So now he's got $530,000. And in 10 more years, he's got $1.1 million. And here's the crazy part. Guess how much of that $1 million is interest? $935,000 that he didn't have to work for. That is the power of the compound effect. And there's this principle, we've all heard it, it's called the Pareto principle. It's that distribution, the law of distribution based on productivity. And it's that 80% of our outcomes are produced by 20% of the activities. You can look at anything, food production, you can look at paintings painted, you can look at books sold, you can look at the number of goals scored in hockey by players or NBA. You look at anything, like the percentage of people that produce almost all the output is very small. But the cool thing about the Pareto principle is it's available to everybody, just like it was available to that guy who worked at JCPenney. It's the inevitable consequence of multiplication. Like I remember I worked in the construction and one of my first bosses, and we were building in this big site, and he was getting frustrated because we were basically preforming these things, and he's like, we're not getting it done fast enough. And the head of the site comes over to him and says, don't worry, watch what happens. And over time, we got better and better and better and faster. And at the end of it, he was laughing. But that's the Pareto principle in play. It's like your skills increase. And over time, at first it feels like nothing, but over time it starts to compound and you start to see the result. You know, some of you have been investing in your community for years. Some of you have been investing in marketing for years, and you're seeing the compound effect now. Some of you have been investing in your families, or you've been investing your time in learning and education or conferences, and you're seeing the compound. Some of you have been investing in your skills and in others, and you're seeing that compound. Compounding effect starts to magnify, starts to multiply. And at first it looks like nothing, but if you truly believe, and that's, it's available to all of us. Like it's what Ira said, there's more than enough for everyone. The world will tell you, if you allow it, the world will tell you what you're worth. It'll say you're worth your job, you're worth your car, you're worth your whatever it is. You're worth the championship that you won or whatever it is. That's not your worth. That's the outcome of worth. It's not even, it's like some people say you're worth the diamond ring. That's not your worth. That's not who you are. It's the fruit of who you are. But when you know what you're worth, the world can't give it to you and it can't take it away from you. What you're worth is so much deeper than that. So Wendy, I remember, like Wendy's going to share a little bit here later on today. And she's done, I know, 40 million in luxury real estate listings in the last 6 months and just killing it, which is so cool. But I remember talking to her a few years ago, and she was working with this client of hers. And she was just working above and beyond. She was so stressed because this client, they had to sell their home. They were in a bit of financial circumstance. They needed to cover their debts. Their credit rating was so bad that they couldn't get into a rental property. And she was working above and beyond, way beyond like the realms of a normal agent, just to, in the sense that it's not covered by her fees, to find them a rental place, to try to like get them into a new home and make everything work out. And she did it. And she did it because even though it wasn't Michael Jackson's former residence, she did it because it came from a place where she was serving others. The craziest thing about when we know our worth is we have no problem serving others. We have no problem going above and beyond. This is like the crazy component about the compound effect is that Of that $900,000 in interest that was made, guess how much money you'd make in the first year? On the very first year, how much money would you make in interest? $361. That's it. Sometimes in the beginning, it looks like so little. It looks like nothing, but it compounds into something magnified. It truly grows. So success is not a big step taken in your future. It's the small step taken right now. So I just want to thank you guys for being here. So with that, I just want to give it back to Ira. Ira has a gift when it comes to communication, and he really has that.